Hello, and thank you for joining me of volume 21 of Ask a Brit. That's right, 21. It's now legally old enough to drink, although for those of you that have been watching, it's probably been drinking for the last 3 volumes. But this is, of course, the format in which I ask you fine people to leave me any question you like in the comments below, and leaving the hashtag #AskABrit. That way I can find your question in the comments. As you can see, I'm in a rocking chair this week, and that's because the questions from you this week were rocking. That was a poor time. And so without further ado, let's get to the first question. The first question today comes from Yase and Kroha. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly there, Yase. But Yase asks, are there any other British YouTubers that you like to watch? Yes, there are. I think I answered this question more broadly a few weeks ago when I answered, are there any YouTubers that you like to watch? But it just happened that one of those was in fact British, and that is What Culture. Check them out. They do sort of top 10 lists of films and wrestling. And they're British, and I'm particularly a fan of Adam from What Culture. I just like his delivery and his knowledge of things. I wish the wife was here right now, because she knows a lot of the British YouTubers other than me, although it is my goal to have her view exclusively my videos. That would be really sad. I hope that never happens. But she's really into Sorted, so those lads on that cooking show that have done really well for themselves. I quite like theirs too. They're full of innuendo, not unlike somebody else I know. Me, to be clear. They're just really good at what they do. I couldn't do a show about cooking because I can't cook and I don't have the budget. Next question comes from Anna Addison. Anna, you ask, I was wondering if you and Tarah could tell me which is worse, US or UK Border Patrol. Corrie Monster and I have set a date to close the gap in September of 2018. I have heard horror stories about getting stuck at the airport and not being able to get past the passport check. I don't know. I think I've been lucky. I haven't had any major run-ins with airport staff over the years, I don't think. I know that the TSA are now clamping down far more heavily and doing pat-downs and all manner of horrible things to one's body. But I've not encountered that yet here, and in the UK, I always had a relatively okay time. Sometimes you would get the odd grumpy individual who looked like he wanted to thump you just because you had jewellery in your suitcase. Why did I have jewellery? Don't ask. In all, I think you'll be fine. You're going to have to go through the usual security checks. It's not going to be fun for anyone because you have to take shoes off and all sorts like that. But once you pass that phase, London is your oyster. You even get an Oyster card. What could be better than that? Oyster cards, if you're not aware, are what you use to travel around London on through their public transportation system. So all that to say, I think you'll be fine, Anna. If it turns out that you're not fine, don't press charges against me. I'm just guessing at this point. I haven't been back to England, of course, in 9 years, so my understanding of how all of that works is very limited from reading and from hearing other people's stories. But I don't hear too many horror stories. It's not like United. Next question comes from John McConnell. John, love this question. President Lincoln once said, all the armies of Europe, Asia and Africa combined, with all the treasure of the earth in their military chest, with a Bonaparte for a commander, could not by force take a drink from the Ohio River in a trial of 1,000 years. Have you ever thought about it, Laurence, taking a drink? A mere 179 years later, just to prove Lincoln wrong. I have, but I've seen that river and I don't want to die. However, when I get to about 95 years old and I've got nothing left to lose, then I will prove Mr. Lincoln wrong. I don't doubt that actually somebody has already done that, but did not live to tell the tale. Next up comes from a person whose name last week I mispronounced or misread, and that is Selena R. Wash. And Selena asks, is there any sort of graduation ceremony prior to, or for that matter, after sixth form or university? I think the sixth form ones are kind of, or they were rare in my day. You just sort of show up and everyone goes, oh, here's your certificate. Yes, brilliant. And it's for, 5 minutes. And then you actually get your results afterward and find out you haven't graduated. And it's sad. Most people do graduate. I did after the second attempt. But then after university, yes, we do have graduation. Now, one or two differences here is, firstly, we don't use what you call the graduation march. We actually call that Land of Hope and Glory. It also used to be the entrance theme to Macho Man Randy Savage in wrestling. So if anyone cares to know that. But we don't have that tune. And we also don't invite the whole family. We're actually, usually speaking, not permitted to. I know at my graduation, I was only allowed 2 people to turn up. I've got 2 parents and a brother that wanted to come, and so that was kind of hard. I think my mother had to watch it. So, you know, she was in attendance, but watching it by live satellite link-up, rather strange set of circumstances. They're very long, drawn-out affairs. If your last name begins with Z, you're waiting until the very end. But great cure for insomnia, I find, Selena. And so the next question comes from Scootaloo. Scootaloo asks, what was your first reaction or first thoughts when you came to the US and saw that Americans drive such large vehicles compared to the UK? I think my first reaction was, I'm never learning to drive here. Although I did attempt that and nearly got squished to death by a semi. Sometimes it feels like everybody owns a military vehicle or something like that, you know, these big trucks that seem to take up the entire road, and here I am on my bike just squeezing between them. I mean, it's sort of indicative really of the whole size difference on the whole. You know, everything in the US seems to be bigger. You know, hopefully I myself one day will build a huge car. Can't see that happening. I don't drive. Okay, next up is Mr. Stephen Daniels, who asks, if you could give any advice to anyone wanting to move from the UK to the States, what would it be? Learn to drive in the UK before coming here, perhaps, maybe. And just recognise that everything is big here, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, embrace it with all your heart. Visit places. I would say, instead of coming here and lamenting what the US doesn't have that you can get back home, enjoy the things that it does have. But at the same time, know where to get those things that you miss from back home. And there are places. A lot of people come here from the UK and they think they can't get their Cadbury products. They can't get their drinks, their tea from back home. You know, they can't get their healthcare system. They can't get their healthcare system. But, you know, there are ways of getting the aforementioned. And, you know, I have done videos on these before. I'd be interested to know, Stephen, where you would be planning, perhaps, in theory, to move to, if indeed this is part of your plans. And I will, you know, help you out, try to find your Cadburys and anything else that may be of interest to you if you were to move here. Okay, next up is Lisa Meath, and Lisa asks, what are your cat's names? My cat's names are Kafka and Dali. I was going through a surrealist phase in which I named my cats after the surrealist writer Franz Kafka and the surrealist painter Salvador Dali. Pretentious. Next cats will be called Luke and Leia, just to put everybody at ease. Next question, JWB52Z. Do you realise that not only do you sing with that flat standard American accent, as covered in a video last week, but you also sound like a combination of 2 of your best impressions, those being John Denver, alright, and Rick Steves? I will take that. I'd love to know how to create an amalgamation of the 2 of them. I suppose it'd be Rick Steves singing, wouldn't it? I don't even know how to do that. And here today we have John Denver doing a cover of Laurence Brown's The Epiphany. I made up a song. I don't know why. Take me home, country road. That just sounds weird. That doesn't sound like... It sounds like Rick Steves drunk in the shower. JPWCPA. I bought a bottle of HP sauce at a grocery store recently. What foods do you put HP sauce on? Thanks. Okay, I used to put it on fish fingers. Fish, chicken... sometimes I put it in my mashed potato, and just lots of things really. Just mess around with it. You can put it on sandwiches. I put it on cheese sandwiches back in the day, and messed up my entire face. And our final question today comes from Beth8554, who asks, have you and or your wife watched Downton Abbey, and will you do an impression of Dame Maggie Smith? This is the day of really difficult impressions. I can't do Dame Maggie Smith. But have you and or your wife watched Downton Abbey? Yes, we have. My wife's watched it all the way through to its conclusion. You know, barring the film that is supposedly being made. She loves it. I liked it too. I never found the time to really sit down with the show and get to know all of the plot twists and story details and all that. But I'll work on that Maggie Smith impression, Beth8554. It's really hard when doing impersonations as a bloke with this voice to just change to do a female voice. If I could, I'd probably rule the world. but I can't, which is one of my biggest regrets in life. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Ask a Brit. We've got more videos coming out in the week, so stay tuned for those. And of course, if you have a question for me, leave it in the comments below. Don't know why I'm doing this voice, so I'll cease. And of course, use the hashtag AskABrit. Until next time, cheerio, bye, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir.